I met with 3 attorneys last week. Here's how it went.
So the big question is this: how are ordinary agents just like us supposed to stand out in the overly crowded real estate space while living a great lifestyle without having to go broke or radically change what we're already doing? Probate is the answer, and this series will show you how. I'm Anthony Nitz, and welcome to The Probate Agent.
Okay, you have to be meeting with people face to face or you're doomed, guys, as real estate agents. I met with 3 different attorneys, had 3 different experiences. I'm going to share with you those so that when you're out there talking to attorneys, you can kind of get an idea. You go, you know what? Okay, I can anticipate some of the things that are going to come up as far as part of the conversation and whatnot. So the first attorney that I met, really nice guy, really nice guy, fairly large practice. And I saw him do a presentation a little while back, and on the way that I got to him, or that I got an appointment with him, was that as I watched his presentation, I recognized that there were some things that he was missing in there that were key. And I told him, I said I had some information that will greatly improve his presentation, and that could ultimately improve on him getting new business or referrals from those people, agents, who are watching his presentation. Of course, he was interested, right? I didn't come to him and say, hey, can you send me probate deals? Because he would do just like what he does with every other agent and just go, you and 50 other people are asking me every week, right? And so we met. And I'll tell you what those things were that I shared with him in just a moment. But we sat down, we met for about 45 minutes, and I shared my tips with him. But then I got to share with him what is that I do differently and how it would benefit his clients. He was pretty impressed. And at the end, I asked him this question, and I ask every attorney this question. This is kind of my close. I just tell me what I need to do, right? And I say, what can I do, Mr. and Mrs. Attorney, to position myself at the top of the list when you're thinking about agents to refer your home sellers to? Now, note, I don't say your probate clients to or your trust clients to, your home sellers to. Why? Do you think they know other people who need to sell homes who are not dealing with probate or a trust issue? Sure they do. Of course, they can still be a good source of referral of business. So I ask, again, I'll just say it again. I say, what can I do to position myself, Mr. or Mrs. Attorney, at the top of the list when you're thinking about agents to refer your home sellers to? And his reply was, Anthony, you know what? I just want you to know that I only refer business, and this is kind of pretty much verbatim what he said. He said, I only refer business to people that I think can actually get the job done. And after talking to you, I'm a good judge of character, and I sincerely believe that you would take good care of my clients. I refer based on geography, is what he told me. And so as it stands right now, you're on the top of the list for people in your area. And I respect that. One thing that drives me insane is when attorneys refer agents to listings that are from 45 miles away or 60 miles away, and they come in, they put a lockbox and a sign, and then you never see them again, right? So I get that, okay? But so now I'm on the top of that list for this area just because I sat down and had a good conversation with him. How cool is that? That's very cool, right? Now, my main job at this point in time is to make sure that I continue to follow up with him on an ongoing basis, because it's not enough just to walk in, get the deal, make a connection, and then sit back and wait. And gosh, they haven't sent me anything. It's been 9 months since we spoke, and they haven't sent me a single thing. Darn attorney. No, you have to do the follow-up. You have to stay in constant contact with them. And just keep that going forward. Okay. And I don't mean just sending emails. That's what I don't mean just that. I'm going to be sending out my lumpy, noisy mail like I talk about in my training. I will be sending out emails. I will be calling them too. I have them on a follow-up campaign where about every 3 months I am following up with these attorneys to make sure. In the beginning, it's a little more frequent, every month. But after about 3 months, then I'll kind of spread it out to 2 months, and then after that, I'll spread it out to 3 months because I've established our relationship, and they don't need to hear from me that often, unless I notice it's tapering off. If it's tapering off, well, then I'll kick it back up again. What were the tips that I shared with them? These were the 2 tips that I shared with them. I said, number 1, you need to have strong edification during the intro, your introduction for your presentation, because here's how his presentation went. Everybody was in the room. We're all sitting around, and he literally just walks up and goes, "Hi, my name is Paul," and went right into his presentation. Okay. When you're doing a presentation, and this goes for you too, if you're doing some sort of presentation, somebody has to introduce you. You do not introduce yourself, but somebody has to introduce you. I don't care if it's the person who's running the event, if it's one of the guests. I've done that before where I said, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you introduce me?" And you tell them exactly what to say, and you have it printed on paper. You don't send an email. I mean, you can send an email so they're prepared for it. But you need to tell them, if you're doing a presentation or if you're giving this tip to an attorney, it needs to be printed on paper. And I'll tell you why. Because in his case, he said, "Oh, I sent a bio to the guy who's running this event." The guy who's running this event, he literally said, "Okay, you guys ready to get started? Here's Paul." I mean, what kind of horrible introduction is that? That is a horrible introduction. Whenever somebody is speaking, and this goes for you too, if you're speaking, or if somebody's speaking at one of your events, you want to edify them to a really high level, because a couple of things. Number 1, it creates authority. It creates an impression in your audience's mind of, this is somebody I need to listen to. When you go, "Oh, and here's Paul," you're like, that audience has to sit there and they have to figure out, well, who's Paul? Who's Paul? What does he do? Why is he talking to us? Is he the attorney, or is he just somebody else that's introducing the attorney? And it takes a minute for them to figure out and get in gear. But when they get a strong, edifying introduction, then the audience, like I said, is sitting there going, "This person I have to listen to. This person I've got to listen to." Okay, so now they perk up, their ears stand up, they go, "Okay, I'm focused, I'm attentive, I put my phone down, whatever, this guy is the guy I came to hear from." Okay. Also, what it does is it helps with sales at the end. It helps with sales big time at the end. If you put out a sales pitch and they understand that you're the guy, and again, this doesn't matter if it's attorneys or if it's you giving a presentation or your mortgage person's giving a presentation or whatever, the strong introduction is key. And I told him, I said, what you need to have is every time you do a presentation, every single time, you need to have that introduction written out, and it has to, and you tell the person who's introducing you, read it exactly the way it is, right? Because I've had some people that say, they come up there and they start reading my introduction, and because of their own insecurity, they feel like, "Oh, I'm not going to read all this stuff," and they go, and a bunch of other blah blah blah. Here's Anthony. I'm like, this makes me furious when they do that, but I'm crystal clear about it now. That never happens to me anymore. Anyway. So I told him this. Said, so at the end, now when you're doing your sales pitch, if you have a sales pitch, whether it's just to get trust business or referrals or whatever it is, those people give it a whole lot more credibility. Okay. And the reason why I tell him to print it out is because he said, well, I emailed the event coordinator, my bio. Well, clearly he didn't print it out himself. Clearly, he didn't take time to look at it, learn it, and embed it in his brain so that he could share with the with the audience. So no, you bring your own bio, or that attorney brings their own bio, print it out, tell them to read it exactly the way that it is, right? And he liked that. He's like, you know what? You're so right. You are so right. Because most people do presentations. They go, okay, here I am. Now they start clicking through slides. Not a good thing. The other thing I told him is I said, at the end, simply ask your attendees if they would like to discuss their trust options. Okay? Just they want to discuss their trust options. And if they want to learn more about the trust process to set up a 30-minute appointment. It's that simple. It's that simple. And he's like, you know what? You're right. We're not doing that. And if all he had was a few people show up and a couple of them did trust, well, guess what? He's doing good. Okay. So the next attorney that I met with was someone that I also saw do a presentation. Guys, I go to every presentation that comes into my area, every single one, for a couple reasons. Number one, just so I can learn. Is there something new? There's not much new in probate ever. Okay. But also gives me an opportunity to make a connection with somebody else, with another attorney. Okay. And I'm always going to do that. But so I went to this presentation, and it was a few months ago. I remember when I saw her, she reminds me of somebody I saw like literally last week. I think I did a podcast on this last week. But she came across as very high and mighty and even snooty, right? I remember I asked her after the meeting if she was willing to be on my podcast, which, if you understand publishing, media, advertising, right? This is free advertising and implied endorsement. So why wouldn't you do it, right? By the way, if somebody asks you to do a podcast, do it ASAP. Don't tell them, well, I'm not sure. How do you do a podcast? I don't know what to do. What do you do? Somebody says, hey, can you do a podcast with me? Yes, absolutely. I've had people call me from podcasts that I've done a year and a half, 2 years ago, right? Because they go back and they'll listen to a podcast. Okay. So anyway, she told me to call her in a couple of months because she was too busy. Really? Come on. Half-hour podcast. We could do it at midnight if you're too busy. It doesn't matter because it's just pre-recorded, right? So I called her once. She never responded. And frankly, I was okay with that. So she just went on my email follow-up campaign. I do categorize people into different categories. People that I'd love to work with, oh, they're my top 25 or top 50, and they are hit in every direction. The people I don't care if I ever work with, they'll get on an email campaign. That's it, right? So she was on the email campaign. Anyway, so I got a call from her. Last week, and she expressed interest in learning more about this podcast thing. So we set up a meeting, because my job is not to just talk to her over the phone and share and all that stuff. No, I want to get face to face with these attorneys. So I set up a meeting with her, and when we met, she portrayed herself as super busy, and she was running around her office and at high speed and all this stuff. Even though she had several people working there, which I don't understand why they're not doing the work if she's the big cheese. But she's running around, and, quite honestly, it didn't look to me like she was doing much except for looking busy. That's my opinion. That's my impression of what it is. But you guys know people even in the real estate space who are like that, right? They're running around. They're so busy and they got no deals, whatever. Okay. So I asked her questions for about 10 minutes about her and her practice. And she very anxiously and quickly, gave her short answers. And she was clearly looking to get to her agenda, which was learning about doing podcasting. The easiest and the simplest way. Well, the next 40 minutes were spent with me showing her how to set up a podcast and getting distribution to most of the major podcast platforms for free, right? Funny enough was that she was so busy and short in the beginning when I was trying to get something from her, when I was just trying to get information from her so I can learn about her and try to figure out where that connection is. But when she was extracting information, incredibly valuable information and knowledge from me, well, suddenly she had all the time in the world, right? And I'm like, okay, again, it's not somebody who's on the top of my list of people that I want to work with, but that's okay. I'm going to tell you why in the end. Anyways, we approached the point where she got it. Okay. Oh, I get it. Okay. I see how this all works now. And almost immediately she jumped up out of her chair. She shook my hand, said, thanks for coming in. Literally, thanks for coming in. Turned around and raced for the door. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I literally had to say to her, I go, hey, wait just a second. She turned around and I asked her the same question I asked everybody else. What can I do to position myself at the top of the list when you're thinking about agents to refer your home sellers to? And her exact words were, we'll see what we can do. And then she bolted out the door. And I just shook my head. I'm like, okay, all right. Now, clearly this person was a taker and not a giver. It begs the question, at least in my mind, what the quality of the product or services that she's giving her clients. But, whatever. It's not my problem. I know I won't be referring her business. And hopefully she's listening to this, because then maybe she'll get a better idea of the people that she has available to her who can refer her business. But anyways, like I said, I'm perfectly okay with that scenario. And I'll tell you why after I talk about the third attorney that I met with. So the third attorney that I met with is a little unique. He has been an estate planning attorney for the last 30 years. And in our conversation, he was almost adamant that he does not do probates at all. Just doesn't do them. He said in his career, he has done less than 10 probate cases, and he himself actually doesn't even handle it. He'll either have his paralegal deal with it or refer it out to someone that he trusts. Right? No pun intended, trust. So we actually met for 2 solid hours. We went back and forth, sharing what each other, our unique skills are and why we're a better choice for each other's clients. He was selling me just as much as I was selling him. And I was extremely happy with this. Why? Because we drove the relationship anchor deep and got a good understanding of what each of us does, as well as just creating that bond, right? I met him through a mutual organization that we both belong to. And actually, I've known him for quite some time, but sadly, for whatever reason, never sat down with him in this capacity. And that's shame on me. I should have done it a long time ago. Okay. Personally, with what I learned, I would not hesitate 1 second to refer business to him. But what got him to spend 2 hours with me? What was it that got him to spend 2 hours with me? Well, I offered to buy him breakfast. Okay. That always works well. Everybody loves food, right? So I offered to buy him breakfast if he'd let me just pick his brain about trusts and probate. And in the end, I asked him the same question I always ask. What can I do to position myself at the top of the list when you're thinking about agents to refer your home sellers to? And he said, in my opinion, these amazing words, these golden words you always want to hear. Anthony, not only are you at the top of the list, but you're the only one on the list. He said, I can't remember the last time I have had an agent sit down with me to learn about my business without the big sales pitch, for the agent, right? But he went on to share that even then, still, the number of agents in his entire career that has actually said, hey, can we sit down so I can learn about your business? Can I buy you breakfast? He said, you can count on one hand, if that. Okay. And then one final thing that I asked him that just sealed the deal was that I asked him if I can feature him on my podcast. Well, he got really excited about that. So you guys can expect to hear from him in the near future. Smart guy, really brilliant and important. You know, if you increase your knowledge of how families can avoid probate, it's just as powerful as knowing the probate process so that you can be that expert in that area. And I have people all the time say, Anthony, you know what? We need to sell mom's place. And it's in a trust. The only reason it's in a trust because I insisted that people get in a trust. So that they don't have to do probate, because probate is devastating, as you guys should know. Okay. Anyways, the common thread that I found, was that I found a place where I can provide value that was important to each of them individually. And now we're like long lost pals, all three of us, right? And the second one, whatever. But I found a common thread, and it's a little bit different for each one, right? A little bit different. So you have to kind of adapt and figure out, where do I fit into this so that I can create that value, provide that value to them. And, hopefully you can find that. And it doesn't have to be difficult. It could be breakfast. It could be, hey, be on my podcast. It could be a couple of tips to help them improve their presentation. But you're coming there with value so that they're not sitting there going, they just want stuff from me constantly. No, you're going and you're bringing value. And I talked about this in my other podcasts and trainings, that this is a key critical element of building your probate business. Okay, so what do I expect out of these meetings? From attorney number one, just because they're on the outskirts of the area that I serve, so they gotta have like an overlapping area, probably only about 1 to 3 transactions a year. From the second attorney, I'll be happy if I get one single transaction, because she's not really looking for, I don't know if I should say this, but what's best for her clients, and, in fact, I wouldn't put it past her to ask me for a kickback of some kind. It just is what it is. And if you listen to my other podcasts, you hear that that's actually, not too uncommon. It's not super common, but it happens. It happens. Okay. So she's looking out for a different objective. So if I get one transaction, I'll be happy with it. The third attorney, I would expect that he would be good for, 3 to 5 transactions per year on an ongoing basis, just because of the small size of his practice. It's a small practice. Okay. So that's only 8 or 9 transactions per year, out of 3 meetings. That's probably not too bad. And some future follow-up. Okay, for me, with a median home value of about $800,000, you can do the math on that and see how that works out. Now, multiply that by 25 attorneys sending you 3 to 5 transactions a year. Okay, once you identify who those top 25 are, you can figure out who your top 100 are, but if you can really dial in who your top 25 are, and that's who you are after and you see all the time, every time, then you are going to crush it. Okay, folks, not all attorneys are the same. They're humans, and they all have different needs and wants and desires. Figure out what you can do to bring value to them way before you give your sales pitch, and they'll not only appreciate it, but they'll respect it, and they'll probably send you business for it. Take care, guys. Hey, do me a favor. If you are enjoying these podcasts, do me a favor right now. Just do a screenshot of either wherever you're listening to this, whether it's YouTube, podcast, whatever. Take a screenshot of it and post it on your social media, or share it on your social media. Share the link to the podcast on your social media to get out there. It really would mean the world to me. It really, really helps. And go and do a review on whatever platform you are watching this podcast on as well. I really would appreciate it. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe right here where you're listening to us right now, and any of your other social media platforms. And leave feedback for me. It's really important to me and it helps us out. Do you have a question that you want answered live on the show? Go to theprobateagent.com to submit your question or even to get an opportunity to be interviewed. For my agent friends, you'll also find additional content and some freebies there that you can download right now. Until next time, let's put the pro back into probate.